Okay, well, we'll reconvene in open session here, and welcome to the Amery Board of Education July 17th meeting. And we will start off with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please join me.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We're still getting a buzz from that. Okay, next then we will do our spotlight on education. And whoever decides
Okay,
to go
well,
first.
we have Josh Ganji and Derek Meyer here this evening to talk about what's happening in essence across the street. So Josh is up first and he's to talk about some house building we got going on.
Good evening, thanks for having me. I'm here to talk about the CT Construction Academy. Special shout out to Todd Christensen for designing our logo and Mark Bottleson for donating a tool trailer for us that Todd put the logo on. There's our first house. We've built 4 houses. That's the one behind behind Slumberland. There's our guinea pig crew. Looks a little smaller, must have been 1 or 2 missing. That was done about 5 years ago, about 1,600 square feet. And these are the contractors that we worked with. These will look the same basically for all the buildings, with the exception of the excavation and the concrete. They changed on 2 through 4. The rest are basically the same. I'm not going to read through them all. They've been wonderful to work with. Just great to work with, and I'm sure it's not easy working with kids, but they do it and they do a great job. House number 2 was built after house number 1 the following year. That was our COVID year. This house is basically the same. It was a little bigger, 2 feet wider, so increased the square footage. Can we go back for 1 second, please? That's the group photo because that was the COVID year, so I never got a group shot of the kids, but we went to Stone Creek and saw what they had to offer, and then some of the stuff, the flooring was purchased for house number 2. And here are the contractors. Almost a carbon copy except for the excavation and concrete. Switched to Paul Gehrman and Mark Vold. House number 3, by the way, the Hoskings, we purchased the lots from the Hoskings for houses 1 and 2. Houses 3 and 4, the lots were purchased from the Peters family. We really went rogue on this one. It's more square feet. We had ridge lines that were perpendicular to each other, so that's why I got a little grayer. We've got the senior crew there. Must have been a little bit of a reward. And then the juniors were pictured in a separate picture, and that's house number 3. And again, most of this stuff was the same. We did add glass shower doors, so that caused Indian Head Glass getting involved a little more. We did April Fresh Cleaning, April Wilson, if I remember correctly. Yeah, and then house number 4 is right next to house number 3, and that was finished up 2 years ago. And there's our crew there. We do have some repeats. We did for houses 2, 3, and 4. And there's our list of contractors. And then got a few action shots here. This is Northwood Tech, obviously coming in, must have been 21. WITC at the time. Forest Painting, Rachel putting in the flooring. And then we got Darren Johnson helping put in tile, Mike Dravis helping sheetrock, Rob Savoti helping side on house number 2. That had to be almost the last day because I know Rob had to help finish side house number 2 because of COVID. And more action shots here. We got Mark Vold helping pour concrete. This is truss day, the most stressful day of my school year, putting all the trusses up. And next slide, please. We got Gary Bauermeister helping with some wiring. There's Hunter, who now works for Countryside, helping install the floor heat. And there's Mark helping Riley put in some forms. And one more action, there's my super volunteer Glenn, couldn't build a house without him. And then we're doing some siding with Rob, and there's Wyatt putting on some stonework on the last house. Opportunities for students, if they elect to, they can receive an essentials diploma from Northwood Tech College. They need to take an understanding construction class, print reading, technical math, and then build the house. And they do that all in our building, except for build the house, obviously. Of about 24 kids that have had the opportunity, 16 have completed that program. I required that they get an OSHA 10 certification. That's being taught online now. They do get a certificate from a union carpenter if they complete a packet of worksheets and then also build the house. And then they have unlimited opportunities to work with contractors and work for them. Already had a solicitation tonight for somebody looking for somebody for workers. So, house number 5 starts soon. We met with Ed Flanham at the 5th house location, which is next to 3 and 4, on land that was purchased by the school, so it's part of the, I guess we call it the farmland. We're putting up silk fence there, excuse me, and what do we got next, Becky? The future. Thinking about developing the southwest corner of the land. I believe we've entered an agreement with Ed Flanham to start laying that out. I've talked to Ed. He's planning on marking out boundaries next week and to lay out lots the following weeks, 12 lots he's thinking. I have touched base with Ben Jansen, and he suggested that the school meet with the city to brainstorm funding ideas. And I guess a worst case scenario is just to build 2 homes off of Otis. So right there and there, and then you would not have to put in a road. And is that it? Thank you. Do you have any questions?
How do we work with the city of Amery? How do we work with the city of Amery, because these are gonna be taxable residences, to have them realize they should put a road in?
I think we need to engage with Assistant City Administrator Ben Jansen and City Administrator Patty Bjorklund to continue that conversation. We've talked at least a half dozen times already. We were just a little too far out to have a real conversation, but we're not that far out now, because when this house is done, we're on to Otis. So that's on the horizon, not the near horizon. So yes, we need a road. A road is a cost-intensive endeavor, and we're going to need their help. Remember, we had that conversation about the development that was going to be south of that land. That development is no longer occurring, because with that development was gonna come a through road off of Otis that ran right into that subdivision. What the city doesn't want, they have made clear, is they don't want a road that's a dead end for vehicles such as fire department, because then they gotta go straight in and back out. They wanna be able to have a cul-de-sac or a through road. And I agree with them, that would be great to have that. So we have to engage with them and figure out what can happen. We can't, as a district, to do that. That's a lot of money to put in a road with its infrastructure, millions.
Good job.
Great.
Yeah.
Great
This
Good
is
program.
opportunity for kids.
Yeah,
It
this
is
is so
great.
good. This is such
Yeah.
a good program. Thanks for leading the charge on this and be willing to do it and
This whole project began when I was at the high school, and it certainly wasn't my creation, and certainly didn't have its inception with me. It really had its inception with the hiring of Josh. We needed someone skilled enough to be able to do it, and Josh is. There is nothing that I've ever been involved in my nearly 25 years in education that's been of inherent benefit more to kids than this project. It is beyond fantastic to watch it happen, because the kids are doing the work. They're figuring it out with Josh's direction and with the other workforce that we have there, these companies we're working with, but they're figuring it out. There couldn't be a better hands-on experience than this anywhere. I don't see it. It's fantastic.
yeah, these kids are just getting real world experience that they desperately need, and you can see with every project that they do, their confidence grows, they get better at it, and they're gonna be able to go out and hit the ground running to either get a little bit more continuing education or go work with these contractors, and they're gonna be just as good as anybody in a year's time. just employability skills that are desperately needed.
Yep. I promised them two things. Nothing will go on schedule, and there will be a problem every day.
Good promises. You know, at least you can
And I-
keep those
and I
promises.
fulfill 'em.
Sounds like a referendum.
Or they fulfill them
You're
themselves.
speaking Kraus Anderson's words now.
Yeah. All right, thanks
Thanks,
again,
Josh.
Josh. And next, Derek. Good evening, and thank you for having us. I had to bring in Emma because she talks a lot better than I do, so she's going to talk about some of the programs that we're doing. So the farm has begun. I guess we're into our second year. This will be almost third year of going. We call it the farm. It's called Fostering Agricultural Skills and Responsibilities through Mentorship Programs. Through all the programs over there, our students mentor other students on the agricultural pursuits that we're doing over there. And so our goal is to basically have every school a part of our program with something that we're doing over there. And so the programs are where our kids are going over there and learning some skills, but also learning how to speak in front of others and learning about the agricultural industry and the things that are involved with that. So I think we can change it here. We'll show some of the updates that we have. So our Christmas tree farm, this is our second year of planting. We have about 380 trees planted now. We plant them with the kindergartens. That was our second group of kindergartners last year that we did that, and they are growing. So that's a good thing, and it's been a really nice program. We're just in the infancy stages of it, so it's going to take some time for it to really show off what we're really doing. But the kids, my kids, will be taking care of the trees and shape them as time goes on. Right now, we're doing more planting than anything else, and then as time goes on, we'll see the benefits of that as we go, but it should be a lot of fun. But we're happy that we'll be doing our third group this year. The next one is our honeybee farm. What we try to do is we try to do programs that kids want to learn about. So it's part of my agricultural academy where we give them life lessons of starting their own business and things like that, and then we keep some of these businesses going. And this is one of Emma Johnson wanted to learn about how to do honeybees. So I'm going to let Emma talk a little bit about what we do there.
So about 2 years ago, we started really planning out everything we needed to do and like where we needed to put them and the equipment that we needed. And with the help of Duke Kruger, we were able to get the supplies we needed, and then I took all the boxes that we got and washed them, scraped off some of the old paint and some of the old residue, and then we repainted all of them. And we went out to Stillwater and got our bees, and then we set them up in the late spring. And then in July here, we put in the supers, and so now in the fall we'll be harvesting lots of honey, and then hopefully we'll be able to sell that and get a good profit off of that. We put a lot of work into it, so yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, it's been a really nice project. I've learned a heck of a lot about honeybees, and I think Emma probably has too.
Yeah, they're amazing. There's a lot about honeybees that like you don't know right away, and that just surprises you every single time I go out there. So
it's been a really nice program, and we're going to keep that going. Emma's going off to college, but we have a couple of other kids that are going to be taking over that program as we go on here. And our goal is to eventually start selling our honey and keep that and grow that project as we go. So you can see it when you look out on the farm. You'll see it right up on top of the hill. There's two hives there. We started kind of small, and we'll get larger as time goes on, but it's a good starting point. And so thank Emma for all the time that she's put into that project. It's been kind of a fun one, so. The next one is the corn maze and the planting corn. So, that's Bob Johnson on the right here. After the corn is planted, special thank you to Minglewood Farms, the Quist and the Solums have been instrumental in the planting and the harvesting of the program. And then I want to thank Alcivia for donating the corn. And then thank Bob Johnson for helping us put in the corn maze itself. So this is our second year going through it. Last year, I think we figured out that we had like 1,200 kids go through the corn maze. It's not just a corn maze itself, it's an educational program as well, so learning different facets of agriculture. We have 6 education stations in the middle of the corn maze, and we have 3 different educational opportunities this year that we'll learn more about as the time goes on. We're gonna start at Fall Festival weekend on that Saturday, and then we have 2 other major programs, including a kind of a haunted hayride at the end, close to Halloween. But it should be a lot of fun. We've had a lot of people go through that program, and I think it's pretty well received. And the elementary school, I know, really loves it, and the intermediate school has been very excited about what we're doing there as well. So our goal is to educate as many kids as we can and have a little fun doing it as well, and it's been a really nice program. So that's the corn maze and planting corn. And our last program that I'm highlighting is the Quality Meats program. Our goal was to get more people into the kids that wouldn't normally raise livestock. We wanted them to be a part of our program, and so we started a program where the Egg Academy will pay for first-year kids for pay for their animal, and then when they go to the auction, they'll pay us back at the end. We have 5 kids in it. We have 5 pigs and 2 sheep that are part of the program. And you can kind of see some of the families that are involved with it. They've been working hard. The animals right now are being kept out at my place, but they've been working really, really hard. And next week is the fair, and so it all kind of comes together at the end here. And Emma's actually a part of that program as well. I don't know if we want to say anything. Sure.
So a lot of us, like Mr. Meyer said, it was our first year working with Quality Meats, and a lot of us went into it not knowing anything about pigs. So it was a great opportunity for us to learn about like the psychology of a pig and like the patience that they're needing and like how brilliant pigs are. Like you don't expect how smart they are, but they're smart. They'll surprise you. And feeding them marshmallows. That's something that surprised me too. They love their marshmallows. But it was a great opportunity for all of us to really take a look like at ourselves too, with our patience and our accountability, because Mr. Meyer gets on us if we're not there and working with our pigs. So it's really, really important to us to be working with these animals on a almost day-to-day basis. And so it's good for us and our animals. So I think it's a great opportunity.
Yeah, they have been learning a lot about keeping quality food in front of them and clean water and all those kinds of parts. The husbandry is probably the most important thing that we learn from the program. And these are all kids that really have never had any of these experiences before. And so that's our goal, is to get them to learn a little bit about the livestock industry and to be a part of that. And we had a really good start. And there's been a lot of support from our community. A lot of people are very excited about this program and what we're trying to accomplish with it. So I think we'll go on one more. How can you help with donations? This program actually was actually started with an anonymous donation that gave us the seed money to kind of start the program with the pigs and the sheep. And so we should break even with that program again and keep that kind of going so that we can add new kids each year to the program. Our goal is that we will only, the monies for that will only go to first-year kids, and then what we were hoping is that they will hold on to that, to the money that they actually raised, and so that they can buy an animal themselves the next year. And then any money that they make from that, we really want it to be part of their college education, that the money will go towards further education as they get older. So I think it's a great program and something that we should be really proud of. I don't know any other schools that do it, maybe they do, but I'm really excited about us giving these kids the opportunity to do something like this. Does anybody have any questions about any of the stuff we have?
Emma, what happens when you run out of marshmallows?
Then our pigs get really sad.
They get angry.
Yeah, they don't like to listen if they're not getting fed marshmallows, so that's when you lose them.
Just the straight white ones, or they have to be colored?
Oh, no, the straight white ones.
Okay,
That's
all right.
their favorite, but they also like Oreos, so
Oh,
at least mine
okay.
does.
Who knew?
So I change it up on them sometimes.
Yes. Yes, wonderful. I thank you much.
It's an opportunity that is a combination, really. When you're talking about the Quality Meats program portion of this, these kids will end up showing these animals on Thursday for hogs at the fair next week. So if anybody's interested in going to see the hard work that these kids have put in, it'll be Thursday will be the hog show, Friday will be the sheep show. Saturday night is the auction at the Polk County Fair, so anybody that makes it into those top tier of animals, and those are the only animals that make it into that sale, is the top tier of animals, then they will be up for auction, and there are business supporters, personal people that come from our county, several other counties, and they really do a bang-up job supporting these kids at this county fair. It's probably one of the most premier county fairs, especially up in our area, not only from an auction standpoint, but just being able to walk through the barns and seeing these kids and the hard work that they've put in. So this is a real team effort for these kids in their animals and what you're doing for them. It's a program like no other, and all of my kids have participated in that program, and it's helped their college education fund quite a bit. So
I was stunned when I came to Polk County, the quality of the livestock program that we have here, just the whole fair itself, and for such a small fair, they do such an amazing job, and the support that we have from our community is astronomical. I've never seen anything like it for such a small, county fair, and it's just amazing. And the skills that my kids have learned from the Quality Meats program, it really has made a difference in their lives. In fact, they have all gone into some kind of animal science because of their parts with the Quality Meats program. So.
Yes.
I know Derek is very good at giving credit to the kids and very good at giving credit to those who are helping the kids, but it doesn't happen without you, Derek, so we want to thank you as well. Your leadership on this has been spectacular. Remember, this began with a conversation at the tennis courts like 5 years ago, and you said to me, what about the land across the street? And look where we are now.
yeah,
So
this
your
really-
leadership is helpful.
This
very
really
helpful.
will continue to be something to be very excited about. I know right now you're housing them at your house, but as we build this program moving forward, this is really an opportunity that's second to none for anybody around here that doesn't have a farm that can host an animal for them or have a place to keep an animal. And the patience and the skills that the kids learn when working with animals is just, it's unreal.
Yep. Yep.
Great job.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
And congratulations on your state finalist.
Thank you.
I was sad to see you didn't get it, but you were right there.
Yeah,
Another year.
hopefully.
Okay. Next, we have the consent agenda items. And
We got consent agenda and vouchers.
Yeah. Would you make a motion for
I
that?
will make a motion.
Dennis Stephens,
Second.
Shar, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. There we go. Nobody signed up for community comments, so now we can go to the administrators' reports.
Josh, you're up.
Okay, we're just progressing through phase one of the remodel. I know some of you guys have been over there to see what's going on. Library's starting to take shape. I'm actually quite impressed with what they have going on there. The first set of classroom remodels the demo will start very soon in the humanities wing. It's really important for us to have that done before the kids start coming in, because that's kind of one of the noisier components of it, is that demoing phase. Summer marching band season is done. We're hoping to relocate back to the high school office here in about 3 weeks or so. We've got fall sports starting in 2 weeks, and Miss Amery Talent Show Pie Ice Cream Social coming up in less than a month.
Thank you.
All right, at the middle school, we're excited that our first 3 weeks of summer school went really well. I want to thank all the teachers and Laura Sjogren again for making that such a great experience for the kids. We're preparing on getting things ready in the building and around the grounds for our next school year. Gym floors are resurfaced. I want to thank Geo for that. They look wonderful and should be ready to go for our sports programs and school programs. I just want to put down our open house and sixth grade orientation is August 22nd. So August 22nd, which is a Tuesday, starting at 4:30, so parents can get that on their agenda and timeline. We've got a lot of different administrative team meetings coming up here. All the administrators meet in kind of a summer retreat towards the end of July, and then of course our athletic facilities committee meetings are coming up. And right here we have summer school and swimming lessons will be resuming, and that's even when we don't have summer school in July, we still have the swimming lessons, and then we kick in 2 more weeks in August.
We had a district offering. We took 18 educators to the Professional Learning Communities at Work Institute in Minneapolis. It's 3 full days of speakers from around the country that actually come and talk about different topics, professional development topics. Staff have the opportunity to go to different sessions that really meet their needs. We go every year, and it was really highly praised. Paula and I went, the administrators, and it was really supportive of a lot of our initiatives. Here at the intermediate school, we have several committees that are working throughout the summer. So the first one is the Positive Behavior Intervention and Supports. They are meeting throughout the summer and just talking about our Warrior Way rallies. How do we incentivize positive behaviors here at the school? Another committee that's meeting is the Accelerated Reader Committee. So Accelerated Reader is a reading program. Students can choose any book that they want to read within any library that we have, and then they can, after they read it, they can take an online test, and it designates point systems, and then we have rewards built in for points. So it's to encourage students to read at home and for students to read here at school as well, and that's really piloted by our Accelerated Reader Committee, and then our library media specialist, Annie Brayton, is very involved in that. New staff mentoring is happening at a district level, so we have several new staff. They are paired with a mentor, and then they have summer hours in which they meet, go over standards, curriculum, kind of just some of the nuts and bolts of what we do. Other things that I don't have on there is, as you probably saw, as you entered, the intermediate school is also going through, not as much as the high school, but going through some upgrades. So we have our terrazzo floors are being ground and sealed. Our gym floor is done. It was on the same timeline as the middle school, and we have lots of painting that's going on. And finally, the high school science order is, most of it is in the room right next to us. Christy will be in the next couple days. She inventories all of that, and then we'll be sending it to the high school for them to find a spot to put it. Some upcoming things that we have, as Tom mentioned, we have summer school. Summer school starts here July 31st. That actually is here in this building. I do believe 4K is at
for K and K.
is at the elementary, and then free breakfast and lunch for any student under the age of 18. And then, as Tom said, we actually have changed our open house a little bit. Ours is going to be occurring on Wednesday, August 23rd. We adjusted our hours, hopefully to encourage more flexibility for parents. So our open house will be from 4:30 to 6 p.m. on August 23rd.
I forgot to tell Jess we're putting our science stuff in the Jetta electric shed there. I saw it, Tom.
I'm not even allowed to put stuff in there, so good luck.
Hello. I want to just, there's a couple things that I in my report that Jessica had already touched on in our mentorship program and so forth. So it's just a great thing that we've been doing here, as well as our PLC committee met down in the cities, and that was a wonderful time in collaboration with everybody. So I just wanted to ditto that a little bit. Our summer school time, our summer work with our staff has been ongoing, and we have our Positive Behavior Incentive Systems Committee as well meeting. Our Student Success Team is meeting. Our Building Scheduling Committee, our Lead Crisis Team, we had some grade level HMH committees that have been meeting, and then our Report Card Committee. We've just been doing a lot of really great work. And I just can't say enough about how dedicated our staff is for our students. It's just been amazing working with them over the course of the summer, and we will continue to meet here a few times before school starts, and they're starting to see faces more and more in the building as the summer goes on. So that is wonderful things. Our summer school came to a close in June as well, and then picked up with Pioneer School, and I just think, thanks to Laura Sjogren again, she just does an amazing job putting that all together. And then thanks for our 3 generations of Pioneer School teachers. The family there of grandma, mom, and daughter have been just a bang-up job, and those kids come in and they're just ready to go to Pioneer School every day. It's just really fun to watch and see. I was not here when we said thank you to Shirley Tilton, so I wanted to bring her up again tonight and just say again, thank you for all that she's done. She was just a great piece of the time that she was at Lean before she left us to go to the middle school, but again, just thank her for all of her hard work. Our Lean Parent Organization has been chatting since last spring. At the end of the year, we had a meeting, and I had another meeting this summer just to try to get that kicked off again. So we're looking to have another parent meeting on August 16th at 8:30 in the morning to just kind of gain some good ground on where we'd like to go for the school year. So welcome to anybody that wants to join us. We're also going to do a fun and freezies get together coming up on August 2nd from 4 to 6. Let's just come and hang out on the playground, and I'm going to just host that with some freezies for the kids. So come on in and have some fun that day. And then just wanted to thank our custodians for all the hard work that they've been doing in our building. They've just been working really hard getting everything cleaned up and prepped for the school year. And our referendum just continues to take place as well. We don't see as much action yet as Josh does, but that's soon gonna start taking shape over with us with some playground equipment movement, so, yeah. So our upcoming, again, July 18th, we have some HMH training coming in with Teresa Stanley. July 31st through the 11th is our summer school session. August 2nd is our Fun with Freezies, and then August 16th, an LPO meeting with our parents. Thank you.
All right, similar to the other buildings here, special education, the world really, work really never ceases. We continue on through the summer. We've already had a couple teams coming in as the building schedules are, finalized throughout the summer and enrollments. We've had teams come in and they're starting to work on their individualized schedules for some students with IEPs. And planning for some of those grade level transitions and specific supports for students who may need further conversation or support or staffing throughout the year, or right at the beginning of the year in some cases. All our systems rollovers in terms of Oasis, now it's called Go Solutions. So if you see Go Solutions instead of Oasis, they've changed their name or been bought out through another company. But those data platforms have been flipped over, as has our budget for IDEA flow-through allocation, and that happened about 7 or 8 days ago, and we have an IEP meeting tomorrow. So just in time to generate that invite in the new data system, So we're already starting, the work of this coming next year in special education. And looking on the horizon, we've got nonviolent crisis intervention coming up in the middle of this month, and closer to the start of school, a paraprofessional summer event happening through CSA 11. We're excited about the speakers, especially Rose Battaglio is a great University of Wisconsin Eau Claire special ed professor, and she's gotten really good feedback over the years from our staff. So those are some of the things we're working on throughout this July.
Does the para event take place here or at CISA?
At CISA.
Okay.
Turtle Lake.
Any questions?
I don't have a clue what the Oasis and the Idea Flow is.
Those are our computer software platforms. So when a student has an IEP, that IEP, all the data and information needs to be entered into this system. And there's various systems out there competing. You'll hear Skyward, you'll hear Oasis, Go Solutions. I can't think of a couple of the other ones. But that's pretty much just the software company that we use to track our IEPs, IEP invites, all the forms that come through Department of Public Instruction for the use of special education on IEPs.
Thank you.
It's far less than exciting, and if you want to know how unexciting it is, Becky can stay after and share with you how unexciting it is. No way.
Vouchers were exciting enough.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Enough fun for one.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Too much fun.
Anything from you, Sean?
No, sir.
Okay, so then we'll go on to our informational items. First one is referendum building grounds update.
Okay.
George?
Well, I'm gonna take the lead here. George has been our tour guide, and the us is the Building and Grounds Committee that consists of Joe Vierkant, Keith Anderson, Ryan Pease, and myself. We do monthly tours of the buildings that have work that have been done on them. We met last week, high school, intermediate school, middle school, and George gives us the highlights. George is as involved in this referendum project as anyone is, and he has a really strong working knowledge of what's taking place, so he gives us the highlights, and we are, to use the words of George, we're on schedule and thus far under budget. So those are the things that we like to hear. There is a lot of work that's been done at the high school, in some places a bit unrecognizable, but it's cool to see that it's coming back together. And the work that has been completed is nothing short of fantastic, and there's some that has already been completed. I'll turn it over to Joe and Keith, or George, if you had anything that you wanted to share, because you've done the same tours as I.
The only thing I would add, or the most exciting news that we got last week, was the fact that all equipment associated with phase one is on site.
Ooh.
So, we don't have to worry about waiting on equipment. The rooms, they can be buttoned up because the equipment can be installed. A lot of it's so large that, door frames and things have been left. But all equipment's on site for phase one.
And that could not be understated, because when we began this process, what KA and LHB both imparted to me, there are certainly serious concerns still about supply chain in regards to equipment and supplies. We were nervous that some stuff was gonna take upwards 18 to 24 months to get here. And that almost went beyond the expanse of the entire project. So this is really good news. So apparently supply chain is getting somewhat better.
Yeah, touring the high school, it's turned the corner from demo to putting back together quite well. It's moved along really fantastic.
It has.
Yeah.
So that is the update, and we'll continue to give updates each and every month until we send Cross Anderson and LHB on their way, which won't be for quite some time.
Yeah, they're gonna start dragging their feet now.
Well, I don't know. They got plenty of work to do over there, I think.
Yes. Next we got, Troy, we got your athletic facilities design proposals.
So we've been talking about athletics in an informal fashion and then in a formal fashion over the course of the last, call it 6 months. The Athletics Advisory Committee met almost 4 months ago, or a little over 4 months ago. to talk about options. You saw a funding proposal option presented by Barrett Financial last month, and it was with your direction that you wanted to see some athletic field options. Troy is an architect that specializes in school work for LHB, and he's got some thoughts. None of what you're going to see here is decisions that have been made. These are simply options for you to think about and discuss. So, Troy, I'll turn it over to you.
We met for, I think it was 3 hours the other morning, and kind of walked through the options. And the options were conversations not only about what the need is, what the cost might be, but other parts of it have to do with schedule. So some of the options are, if you think about what it takes to rip up a football field and a track, and then how many months will you go without the amenity, and how will that impact programs not just over 1 year, but potentially 2 years. And so we had lots of conversations that really kind of centered around schedule and centered around what are the amenities that would provide opportunities for the greatest number of kids across the district. And so that has been, I think, the goal, across the board as we've been looking at this is what are the things that we can do that will touch the most number of kids, and what are the things that we can do that will also try to shorten the schedule a little bit, so that that programs won't go without for not just 1 year but multiple years. So probably the thing that we spent the most time talking about is option A. And the parking lot that you see up here around Lean is actually the parking lot that's going to be going in here in the next year. And as we were talking about all of the options, one of the questions revolved around parking, safety, and when you start thinking about just in the case of this option is where do we do road closures and things like that when we start thinking about where all the people walking from, how are they getting to and from, in this case, the stadium or the baseball field. And so even little things with regard to closing off the street in these locations, creating cul-de-sacs of sorts so that if people are coming in to do drop-offs for senior citizens or folks that have other needs, how close can we get them to the stadium to provide access and entry? So looking at this from a perspective of what is it that we're doing and what is it that's possible. And so we looked at the quality of the fencing, the quality of the fields. In meetings past, we had talked about the possibility of putting a new mechanical system at the high school, which would require a well field. And we said, well, that might be a possibility to put it under the baseball field. One of the challenges became how long the baseball field would be out of commission if we put it there. And so we've actually started to have conversations about where might a better location be for the well field, because if we put it under the baseball component, they would be without a field for years, not just, or multiple seasons, not just one season, which seemed to be something that became a big concern as we talked through things. But in option A, we're basically looking at just recreating the existing stadium. So we would be adding one lane to the track, taking it from 8 to 9. We would be creating an infield that would accommodate not only football but also soccer. We would be removing the trees because to accommodate soccer we need a bigger infield, and what that would look like or what that would entail also means that we would need to move the bleachers and the crow's nest, so to speak, further away. And so you can kind of see just by the grading where the tree line is with regard to all the other amenities that would be improved. So you can see there that we would be relocating the high jump pit, shot discus. With that, we're probably going to need some stormwater management location because we are increasing the amount of impervious or hard surface. And then looking at how do we maintain or how do we further enhance amenities like the concession stand and things like that. So we would be making improvements to the baseball field, and again, conversations still continue about what is the best opportunity for that. On option B, we said, what happens if we just leave the existing facility the way it is? It becomes something that could be used by the community, by middle school. It is essentially rather than taking it apart or tearing it down or doing something like that, it becomes an amenity that can be used while we create a new one. And so You can see there that we're showing putting a new track and soccer, football field inside that track and locating it close to the high school. And the reason for that is, if you think about where the athletes are coming from and where they're all going to, you know, it allows us that opportunity to move that amenity closer to the high school, as well as not causing any disruptions that might say football is displaced for 1 year or track might have some challenges as well. So, so then looking at where do the field improvements go, where then can we make improvements to the junior high baseball field as well as the current baseball field with outfield improvements, and we can spread the dollars a little bit further this way because we don't have the cost of demolition and some of those other things that you have if you're looking at renovating the current stadium or the current location.
So is this option B?
Yep.
Is the football field track, that's a new field
New field,
for varsity play?
correct.
Okay.
Now, in option B, where would the well field be?
The well field, we could put that either underneath the junior high baseball field, when that's relocated, or we could, you know, still consider putting it underneath the baseball field. So one of those other places. It makes it difficult to put it underneath the parking lot because you just drive the frost down deeper. So you're concerned about the depth of the wellheads and things like that. But there are a number of locations around there that we can tap into. And again, looking at using that as an opportunity to kind of spread or help you stretch those dollars a little bit further. And then option C is really taking a look at just some of the other amenities and saying, well, you know, what are the updates that we can do that really say, is the 8-lane track okay? Baseball, the plaza needs to be revamped, but then looking at tennis and things like that and some of the other programs that also need a little bit of help, a little bit of work, whether it's lighting or just simple upgrades and things of that nature. So, next slide. If you looked at option 1 or option A with regard to the football field and soccer stadium, so if you look at option 1, all of that would take about $5.28 million for all that work that you saw in option A. And then if we were to add baseball turf and dugouts, turf being the outfield, correct, John? So turfing the outfield of baseball and then rebuilding the dugouts, raising them up so we don't have issues with water. Every time it rains right now, the dugouts kind of fill with water when they're recessed. But looking at some of those things, and that would add about another $1.6 million to the budget. So we talked about a lot of different things. What's the best surface for which age levels or which athletic programs, and those conversations continue.
Is there a cost option here for B?
For B, it would be about the same price, give or take a little bit less, I would venture to guess, but we're really looking at that same price point for each of them because even though you're not moving the stadium, you are adding the junior high baseball field to the mix. So, so the two options are pretty close.
And these are only costed with artificial turf, not a sand bed and a different grass mix to have a natural field.
Correct, right now we are, that's correct. For the option A on the 5.28, the baseball obviously is sand grass, and then the football field is artificial turf. But we certainly could price that option, it's what, maybe a million, rounding off, would be $1 million less maybe to go with just grass, regular grass.
And that would be like a sand pack with that actual,
Sand peat field.
to allow for better drainage and to get in there quicker and things like that.
Yeah, it depends how much get used.
It's kind of a quick overview, but just something to kind of give you an opportunity or pause to say, continue the thought process of what works, what doesn't, opportunity to talk to the coaches and physical education teachers and whatnot about what they see, what they like, what they see as improvements. So
And how would that work with, so I'm looking at probably Josh or Mr. Fern, or, how would that work for having, soccer and football on the same field, and then we have home soccer games, we have the football field being used Monday night for JV, Friday nights potentially, and then our Tuesdays, Thursdays for middle school.
With lights, it's not an issue. The issue is if you're doing grass and you're playing soccer and football, freshman, JV, varsity on it, I don't think a grass surface would survive.
I'm just talking scheduling time. I'm not talking about surface
Not an
play, I'm
issue.
talking scheduling now.
No, we've got lights out there.
So you would have to do soccer games later or
They would
football
love
games
to
later?
play at 7 o'clock at night on a Tuesday.
Some of our middle border conference schools, Osceola, Baldwin, Rice Lake's not a conference, but we typically play at 7 PM there because they're in a turf stadium, under the lights.
Jeff, why don't you come up in the mic? This is gonna be the last question for you. You can't run off yet, we might need you.
You haven't been excused.
So just scheduling purposes, is that what we want to address?
Yes,
Okay.
please.
So essentially scheduling, I mean, don't get me wrong, if we have a turf stadium, it's definitely going to be a little more, there's going to be some more traffic out there. But our varsity soccer games would start at 7 PM. And our middle school events and our lower level football games typically start at 4:15, 4:30. So, I mean, there will be traffic there from 3:30 in the afternoon till 9 at night, just as you see at other local complexes.
And a lot of other schools that have had projects like this have went to turf, right? Is it, I can't remember if we talked about, if there's a breakdown, is it 50-50?
Run through the middle border conference. Who has turf and who has grass?
Okay, currently, Osceola has turf, St. Grace Central is finishing their turf project this summer. Somerset is fundraising for their turf field. Osceola has grass, Baldwin Woodville has turf.
Not
No,
Osceola.
they have turf.
What's that?
You said Osceola
Oh,
twice.
sorry, Baldwin Woodville has turf. Altoona has turf.
Prescott, I think you said. had
Prescott
grass.
has grass. No conversations as of recently about a turf field there.
So by my count, when it's all said and done, we're looking at probably 6 of the 8,
Correct.
us and Prescott being the 2 that aren't.
Right. I'm
Yep.
confident Somerset will move to a turf field. They have passed a referendum currently for a grass stadium, but they're fundraising for their turf field.
Who in our conference plays soccer on their turfed football field? Do you know that?
Baldwin does, St. Grace Central will, and Osceola will. Altoona, yep. So 4 schools. And
And have
remember,
they-
not all middle border schools have soccer. So like
Oh,
Prescott doesn't
true.
have
Yes,
soccer.
good point.
Ellsworth
not
doesn't have
apples to apples.
soccer.
Sure.
So,
Have they had their turf long enough? I mean, I know Cumberland has had it for quite a while, in the area for injury comparisons, for the severity of injuries and the amount of injuries on turf versus their grass fields. I know
So-
I'm gonna be the most unpopular person in this room tonight when it comes to sports, but I cannot see, and I understand that we wanna get use out of this, but if we're going to move a facility and we would actually be able to keep playing and we wouldn't be able to disrupt that, I can't see having injuries, even one catastrophic injury that could have been prevented, or concussions, because we decided that just because everybody else has them, we want them to. I just don't feel good about that.
yeah, I can say that I honestly don't have concrete scientific information. I don't hear our coaches coming in having conversations that, playing on turf fields are seeing more injuries. I don't know, maybe these folks can talk about it. You see it at all levels, collegiate-wise, Division III, Division II, Division I, they have turf. You see it in the NFL. You do see some of these professional teams have grass, but they also have a staff of 10 to 30 people probably that maintain that, and it's fully irrigated, and, that's a very scientific project. But I think the turf at the high school level with our weather and elements, I think it brings the most predictable surface and the safest surface. Some of these football fields with these crowns and irrigation heads and low spots, rocks. I would venture to say the turf is a safer environment, but
Right, but on a new construction facility, I would doubt that we would have that, especially knowing the quality of work that these guys have put out and,
you're saying for grass?
yes.
Okay, my thing with grass, I think would be great for a year or 2 years. But we have 1.5 grounds people around here to maintain that, I think it's a really tall task.
And we couldn't add groundspeople?
Well, that's something you guys could decide on. And
For
I
$1 million
think- so-
savings, I'm guessing.
But I'm
yes, we
being
could.
serious, you're trying to find somebody who is dedicated and willing to put in the extra time. I don't wanna say it's been a revolving door, but it's definitely a tough position to fill for, we just hired Reggie Schleissner, and he's doing a great
Yeah.
job, but now we're talking about how do you paint a soccer field? How do you paint a football field? And, we're not having a ton of conversations about the science behind grass and growing it. And, we're just trying to get everything mowed and painted and, hopefully he enjoys his experience and continues to stick around because it's a tough task. But I think you're seeing some districts hire out some of that work
Right.
just because they can't find consistent help, but.
And please don't get me wrong, Shar, the reason for doing this is not to keep up with the Joneses, to make sure that we're just like what everybody else is doing. I'm not a football coach, I'm not a person that's played football here, I'm but a spectator on the sideline. Our football field is substandard, and I would dare to say maybe of the 8 schools in the Middleborough Conference, the worst of the 8. That could very well be true. Our baseball field, you could probably say the same of. It is substandard. It is actually, in some regards, in some places that we travel to, embarrassing, to the point where I don't want them to come to Amery to see the surface that they have to play on. It is not good. It's not that we have to have turf surface because others do, it's because we have to provide the necessary product for our kids to succeed as student athletes, and this is a means by which to do that. Yes, it has a price tag, and safety is paramount, yes. But I believe we could do both.
Yeah, and I agree with that. And we sat here and passed motions for $750,000 for tennis courts to be built because of safety, because we had a girl blow out her knee at a town court that wasn't good enough. And we didn't have a problem with that. And I think I was actually a strong advocate for that because it had to be safer. And I think that, to me, I'm just speaking as one board member, that safety is the utmost importance to me. I have coached teams and traveled into these turf fields. I've been on the sidelines picking out rubber out of kids' eyes because of what happens there. I've seen staph infections on legs because of the plastic blades of grass. I've seen those injuries. I follow the NFL, and the NFL Players Association vehemently opposes the turf. They want grass, but the price tag is too high. We have brand-new stadiums being built all over, and they don't want to rip out their turf. And they're playing on the most luxurious turf that you could have, to your point of that they also have groundskeepers. So I get the argument. I would like to see another option of, if we're gonna relocate a stadium, to what that would look like and what the analysis would be and how that would hold up to foot traffic.
Sean,
Yes.
I talked to quite a few people about this and
Yep.
listened to both sides. And it really doesn't matter where I stand on this. Obviously, I want nice fields. And I completely agree that they are subpar. The thing is I thought we were talking, if I was telling people we were talking about $3 million, and we could do this Fund 38 or whatever up to $1 million, and that we were gonna talk about $3 million. But if they were questioning $3 million. If I went to the same people and said, hey, it's gonna be $5.28 million, how am I financially, again, we just took about $43.5 million of referendum.
Here's how we would do it.
The timeliness of this is horrible.
I believe it's actually ideal. And the reason I say it's ideal is because our debt service is but nothing. We have no debt whatsoever to be paying via our revenue limit. So here's how it would look. In Fund 38, the mechanism that Lisa Voisin from Baird Financial talked about last month is approximately $3 million. The reason I say approximately is because you don't know your interest rate. So $3 million is your working number. Via the rebate that you would receive by doing the geothermal, you're looking at another $750,000. That's 3.75. And if you use district dollars out of the 2023-24 budget at the tune of $500,000, and you used $500,000 out of the 2024-2025, you'd have another $500,000, that gets you to 4.75, almost to 5 million. That's how you could do it. You might be asking, well, how are we affording 500,000? We have $750,000 in the 2017 referendum money that is devoted to buildings and grounds. The 500,000 would come from that 750,000. Because the idea is, we've taken care of most of the priority ones by what we're presently doing. And if we haven't, it's something we simply could not have predicted. And it happened despite us having the ability to predict it or not predict it. So we can get out towards 5 million. This is all about projection, and this is all about options. But if the time is ever going to be ideal, now is the ideal time, because we have the means to do it financially, and Kraus-Anderson's already here. To bring Kraus-Anderson back to town is gonna cost a sizable amount of money, because they've got other work to do. They're already here. To do it, now would be the time to do it. And the other reason it's time to do it is because our fields are way, way beyond where they should be in regards to the quality of play. And not just football and baseball. I would say the same of JV baseball, and I would say the same of soccer.
You know, again, believe me, I've been thinking and reflecting on this for a while now, and the other thing you're missing is nothing gets cheaper.
No, true,
In-
absolutely.
In 10 years, and again, I remember some of the conversations we had in the auditorium about the referendum.
Yep.
And I really questioned, why hasn't maintenance been kept up? And I remember Keith and Dale talking at the auditorium that night. And again, if this is something, like, again, would I rather pay for it now? Of course, than I'd rather have 2 or 3 million added on in 10 years. But again, the problem I have is going to, especially an Amery, city of Amery taxpayer, and saying, hey, you just got hit, and again, partially, $1,700 was an increase in a split level home, which is a modest living home, I believe. And their taxes went up that much, and again, I know at one point, someone had commented to me, oh, taxes aren't gonna go up. Well, I don't really think they're going down ever.
But this proposal that you use Fund 38 and the money that you have via rebate and the money you have from the 23-24 and the 24-25 budget is zero impact to the taxpayer. $0. The $3 million is not a tax impact. And here is why. The $3 million is within the revenue limit. It's $232,000 as a line item in last year's budget. This year it's noted to be $99,000, and the next 4 years, $55,000. You simply levy $232,000 from this year all the way through 20 years from now. And you're saying, perhaps, people are saying, well, why wouldn't that be a tax impact? Because the money is already budgeted for. The money is already in the revenue limit that we're using. We're levying to the max. This district is never under levied. I don't know of any schools other than one in CISA that under levies by any number of dollars, because you're telling the state, we don't need your money, and then you won't get as much the next year. This says $0 tax impact. That's why now's the time. If we had other debt that was coming from debt service within our revenue limit, it would not be the time. Our debt is minuscule. Our financial portfolio is stellar. Now is the time, if we're ever to do it. And it has $0 impact to the taxpayer.
Do you ever think, again, I know I'm just a different system and a different thinker, but after this referendum, when people took out, when we took out this loan, and wouldn't we ever want our loans, again, in my personal life, I want my loans to look like this, going down,
Sure.
right? I'm just thinking, I think you're just kind of thinking, well, we're here, you're just kind of thinking, well, it's never gonna get cheaper, we'll just keep.
No, what I'm thinking is our debt service within our revenue limit goes from $232,000 in the 2022-23 budget. That's the line item, the number of dollars devoted to pay your debt service. And it was for the 3 debt loads, the land across the street, the safety and security, and which one am I missing? It was on the slide last month, I'll think of it in a moment. Those 3 items are the 232,000. That this year has become 99, and the next 4 years becomes 55, and then becomes 0. Then we have a debt service load through our revenue limit dollars of 0. Districts don't have 0 debt service. The referendum debt is outside of the revenue limit. That's 43.5 million that's paid down in a different way, and that number does continue to go down over the next 20 years. So they're apples and oranges in the money that's in the debt service load that's within the revenue limit has gone down. It's why we're in the boat we are now. 10 years ago, we couldn't have done this, because 10 years ago, we were cutting $750,000 from the budget. Dale and Keith were here when that occurred. And in addition to that, we still had 10 more years of debt to pay. We're down to nothing. 55,000 is down near to nothing for the next 5 years. If you have it at 232 for 20 years, it doesn't cost your taxpayers anything, because it's already 232. If we don't spend the 232 on the athletics project, we'll simply spend it on something else in the district, and I'm not sure what that something else would be. Certainly, we'll put it to use. We'll pay for staff or whatever it is. But this is, after the referendum, priority one in regards to what needs to be fixed in the district. It's way overdue. Some of these facilities are original to the district, like 50 years old. That is not okay for our student athletes. It needs to be better. This is an opportunity to make it better. And the good thing is, we don't need to know tonight. You got 4 months to think about it.
And keep in mind too, the other thing is that, with turf, you're extending your season because you're getting on fields quicker. You're getting off them in the fall. You're kind of extending the use into the colder weather. But the other thing is physical education. So, a lot of the fields don't get used for physical education because they're already getting beat up by soccer and all the other activities. So, you're also allowing for greater use during the school day for that same amenity, because it's dry, it rains, you're on it 15 minutes later. You're not on it 15 minutes later, even with a good grass field that drains well. So, so those are other things to weigh too, because it's not all about athletics. It's also about physical education and the opportunity to go outside and do those things also.
Yeah, I would say band is another one, marching band, or when they're prepping in the fall, that's another program that consistently wants to use it. And then, looking at other communities, been down at Duran, they have a turf field, Little League Baseball sets up there in the spring, because they don't have dry fields, so they go out on the football field, they set up their bases, the little kids, parents, taxpayers are out there using that field. It's not strictly just for high school-based sports, obviously takes priority, but try to find ways for the little kids to get out there too and enjoy it.
So I see we have several coaches here tonight, and maybe, just curious, don't mean to put you on the spot, but if you guys have any thoughts maybe on a turf versus grass?
Anyone want to come up to the mic and take that one? Ryan's been stewing about his science facility. Science supplies the whole night.
Just kind of going off the turf versus grass question. Last week, we went on game field because the practice field is like a rock for camp. We had guys slipping all over the place. I mean, it's getting irrigated well. The grass is growing well, but it's soft. We created some bad footholds because of that. With turf, obviously, we don't got to worry about that. I mean, we can use it extensively through, I had to ask Jeff to make sure we go on it, for camp. Hey, can we go on and make sure they won't wreck it for the fall? Yeah, go ahead. If we have turf, we don't have to worry about that. If we want to get on it, we can get on. Playing wise, and kind of going after Char's question with injury potentials, kind of talking about the NFL. Yeah, a lot of them are going to different playing surface. Those are a lot different athletes than what we deal with in high school. They're bigger, they're faster, they're stronger. Their feet actually, they're strong enough to keep their foot in the ground. That's what happens with the turf in high school. From all the years that I've coached, my 18th year of coaching, played on turf or coached on turf a lot, I have not seen an increased injury potential during those games. Haven't had knock on wood, obviously, haven't had a major injury on a turf field that we haven't had on a grass field. Are they going to happen? Yeah. That's the nature of the beast when you're an athlete. There's going to be injuries, but does turf increase it at the high school level? Probably not. And like what Jeff mentioned, Division I level, you don't see nearly as many major injuries at the Division I level as you do in the NFL. And the big thing there is how big those guys are in the NFL and how fast they are. So I don't think that playing surface is gonna cause us to, cost kids seasons and that kind of stuff more than it already does. But the big thing is, for me personally anyways, the practice surface. I mean, we have guys get massive shin splints. I mean, we start in 2 weeks. We'll have guys ice bath every single day to make sure they don't have shin splints from practice, because we're practicing on concrete on the practice field. I mean, I have 2 sprinklers right now out there that literally go from me to Joshua. That's how much water pressure we have. And if we have turf, we won't have to worry about that. I mean, they'll still have to take care of themselves, but it's not gonna be nearly as a big of a pounding for the month of August on them. And then once we get into, well, whenever the growing season stops, late September, early October, I mean, we're down, we have to try to find a patch of not dirt to practice on, which obviously isn't very safe for a kid to practice on dirt when we're going to the ground and, doing tackling stations and whatnot. We had a kid break his collarbone last year because he hit the ground too hard. So with the turf, I don't think we need to look at that issue. That's my opinion and from my experience with it.
I understand exactly what you're saying, and I understand that and to Sean's point, is that our field, the existing field, is subpar. But a different field with a sand pack underneath it would also be a different surface than what you're talking about in the existing field that we have.
We still wouldn't be able to practice on it, because you can't rip up your game field. And this one, the grass is probably 3 inches right now, and we still ripped it up. Quality grass playing surfaces, in high school, I'm trying to think if I've ever really been on a quality, probably not. I mean, where you talk about hey, if we're gonna spend millions, we might as well do this thing right? If you're gonna put quality, I think about walking on Lambeau, that's quality grass. And like Jeff mentioned, they have probably 40, 50 guys that monitor that grass every day, and I've seen them in the winter, they got grow lights on it in the winter so it doesn't die. Where obviously we can't do that here. You're asking a lot of money then if we put grow lights and heat lamps and heat the field, heat between the hashes like Lambeau does and replace sod after a game. We can't.
Well, I don't think we're asking for a pro level field here. Again, to your point, our pro
Well,
athletes and our high school athletes are a little bit different
But if you have turf, you're getting really close to a pro level field.
for high school level athletes.
Yeah. That we can practice on.
I think the big conversation pieces that exist, turf versus grass is certainly one of those, but where we're at in the process right now is location of football field. There are a couple of options for that, whether soccer is on it or not on it. What do you do to the baseball field? Is it turf? Is it not turf? Fence lines, dugouts, that's a conversation. What do you do to the JV field? I hesitate to call it a baseball field. It's not, it really isn't. I've spent some time over there this summer with my own kids with youth baseball. It's not a very good surface. What you do at the soccer field, by the end of its season, it's pretty rough shape too. Those are the conversations at this point. In this district, what we have always done is we've done exhaustive research and made the best decision with the information available, and I imagine we would do that with any playing surface that we choose. And I would imagine that the football staff, the soccer staff, and the baseball staff would be part of that, and so would you, so would Jeff, and so would Kraus Anderson. They would know best, so we would make the right choice. Because I'm making up a number, there are 500 different versions of turf. You can do whatever you want. There are 500 different versions of grass. You can do whatever you want. You gotta figure what's best based on the available research.
Can you put together that document of what you already studied on how we're paying for this?
How about I'll come back next month and talk to you the extension of Fund 38. That information's pretty widely available now, and that Lisa just presented it less than a month ago. That, in addition to what Troy's gonna talk about again here with the geothermal system, so that's the second piece of it, and what we choose to do from budget. And then in addition to that, I think the point of contention is when you say to Amery resident, well, these facilities would cost $3.2 million or whatever number you say to them, they think immediately in their mind, oh, there goes my taxes again. And that's a natural reaction. But in this instance, that is not what's occurring. I'll make that more clear in a presentation next month so people can know what it is and we can have a better understanding of it ourselves. Because Lisa's presentation was one piece of it. Troy's was one piece of it.
Troy, I do have another question for you on option B, because I'm old and I can't read this very small print. and I have bad eyes. Is this including, I think it says a 10-lane track, is that right? A new 10-lane track in option B?
Yeah, he mistyped it, it'll only be 9.
Okay, so that's it, okay, so that, but that is gonna be, the idea would be a new track
Yep,
there.
new track, 9-lane track, yeah.
In the conversation that's been had, and I haven't had, I mean, I don't wanna put you on the spot, Justin, but I don't think there's been a hard push for a 10-lane track. There's been a push for a new track that's 8 or 9 lanes. Because I don't know that there's a 10-lane track around here, other than UW lacrosse.
Just colleges right now.
But, so we, that's not a need. 8 or 9 would be what we're talking about.
And then how would that look for, cause we would have to demo the existing track there, is that correct? Am I looking at this correctly, or,
We would just leave the amenity as it is,
and then,
In option B.
in option B.
okay.
Yeah.
Do we have a 9-lane there now, or is it 8?
Eight.
Right, so we just add another lane, is that what that is?
For option A,
No, B.
for B, well, it would be a new track located closer to the high school. So you would have 2 track facilities, one that's 8-lane and one that's 9.
Okay, gotcha.
Yep. So, yeah, exactly. So again, you know, what you're looking at is, if you want to address and say, okay, let's do a nicer baseball and address the needs there, do a new junior high field and create an amenity there, and then look at the track and football soccer complex. You know, you're putting it close to the high school, so that now it's close for accessing it for physical education and all of the other activities. Expanding the parking there to allow for its use. And to offset those costs, we're not demolishing or redoing anything that is the current facility. In the future, you might elect to rip it out and just, you know, put a whole bunch of, you know, little amenities for, you know, youth soccer or something like that back in its place. But for right now, to save money to accomplish everything that's on the left-hand side, what's on the right-hand side would remain. So it would almost be like a junior high facility for all practical purposes. But, you know, the cost of relocating a lot of amenities and tearing down the trees and doing all of that, there's a pretty significant cost there. So
Right.
that's why I looked at it and said, what if we built a new stadium rather than spending money on demolition? What if we spent money on creating a new facility, leaving the old, and moving forward that way?
There's a lot that I really like in option B.
Yeah.
Other than the surface of
Yeah.
but other than that, I really like.
You should say that.
I think the turf is growing
Want
on
me
it.
to say that
Say
again?
it.
The turf doesn't grow, Dale, the turf doesn't grow.
It's growing on it. You're warming up to it, I can tell.
So we could, in theory, then use the old football field for practice. That could be a practice field. I mean, I
It
know
could
it's
be.
not great. I know, Jeff, you're shaking your head back there going, no, but
It could be.
I get it, that
It
it's,
could be another amenity that's used for junior high football. It could be
Right.
another amenity that's used for, you know, youth soccer. It could be another amenity that's used for, you know, a variety of different things, including physical education still for the middle school and
Right.
intermediate school because of its proximity. But again, just looking at it, it was out of the box thinking. I said, well, what if we don't want to lose a football season? What if we don't want to lose a track season? It gets you a new facility right up by the high school where it can be used for physical education and all the rest of it, and still have a nice amenity close to the middle school, intermediate school, which now is available for development later on if you feel the need for those other types of amenities.
yeah. I do like the idea of having that closer to the school when we have injuries that occur. I mean, and especially when they're catastrophic injuries that occur on our field, it's a long way to cart somebody or to get somebody back to a locker room for a training facility or something to be looked at.
The other thing that option B accomplishes, it helps solve some of our parking issues. Because people are literally
Right.
parking on any green surface they can find right now.
Right, which rips everything all down. Yeah.
It's just what we do here.
Yep, placing the amenity so that, you know, if the road is extended all the way down, you know, is a positive. It puts the backstop of junior high baseball, you know, out there where softball is. People can argue or say, well, I think the orientation's wrong, we should flip it, and those are things that can be done. We were just looking at how do we capture the most or largest amount of green space, and so those things are still things that, you know, until you approve a final design, we were just kind of.
And certainly don't be married to the budget price tag that you see. Those are approximations given to us by Kraus Anderson. Not only that, the price tag goes up or down based on what you choose to do. I mean, it literally is like a shopping list. You can do this and not do this. You can do this and not do this. I mean, we could spend $15 million, or you could spend $500,000, depending on what you want to do. That price tag is merely costing out present considered options.
Yeah. So in option B, you know, the parking area that you've designated, do you know the carload that would be in there? Does it say on there?
I don't, you know, it kind of comes down to, he's showing something that looks pretty, he being the civil engineer.
Yeah, I know.
Showed something that
Yeah,
looked
we
pretty.
want
he did.
mullions and trees, no. Being alive.
George loves curbs and trees and
I
parking
know,
lots,
boy, don't you? Especially when you're plowing snow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So those are things that, you know, we can continue to develop and say, how many cars can we fit there? You know, we even talked about, you know, if you were to renovate this amenity, you know, there's lots of wasted ground down in here. Could we extend parking, you know, so that it's one nice parking lot that goes all the way across from the middle school to the intermediate school? And, you know, what might the cost be there? And is that the appropriate location for additional parking?
And it matters where home plate is. In a brief conversation with Jeremiah the other day, there's that big green spot to the left and the right, or the east and the west of the baseball field. You could park there. You just probably shouldn't park your new vehicle there, because that's foul ball central.
Yeah.
People don't park there for that reason. They park up the road and they bring a lawn chair, which makes sense.
And we did do natural turf at some of the fields at North St. Paul, Tartan. And I haven't talked to Mike Boland this year, but for 3 years running, it reached the point where they couldn't manage it themselves. They brought in a turf expert from the University of Minnesota that was doing the maintenance and working with their grounds crew on how to keep it green and growing, because it's a pretty significant regimen of fertilizer, aeration, and everything else to get the roots to go deep and to do all of that too. So, so just to be something to be aware of. If you do turf, make sure you set aside money for a maintenance program, at least for the first couple of years, to get people to understand how it works. It's kind of like throwing your staff into a new teaching you know, experience without providing them the proper training too.
Yeah, and I think if you're looking at, I mean, obviously, like you said, you don't wanna get bogged down by money, but if it's, $1 million less, we could think about putting some of that savings into, if that's where we go, but I don't feel that that's where the majority of people are gonna wanna go there, but if that's where you go, that would be dollars that we could think about saving.
I just think it's like your Menards rebate, you're just gonna spend it back at Menards.
Menards
I
hope
love
so.
the Menards rebate.
I just got one in the mail today.
Don't use a guy thing, Kohl's cash.
Yeah, Kohl's cash.
Go after the gas.
You must have
I
watched
just
Kohl's
sent in my
cash.
Menards rebate. I just sent in my
You
Menards
must have
rebate.
watched the Netflix thing on quarterback, right?
It's been an ongoing joke with Kirk for
Other
a long time.
questions or comments for Jeff, Ryan, since he's up there, Troy, or myself, or anybody?
What are we gonna do for community input?
Well, that was what I was about to talk about. Wanted to give you a chance for any other questions. Okay, our timeline moving forward is next Wednesday evening. We have an athletics advisory committee meeting. There's 35 or so folks on that, coaches and sports-minded parents that are, in not every case, work here. About a third of the folks don't work here. That's next Wednesday evening. You've all been invited to that, so that'll be a more extended time period for them to have feedback. LHB's there, Kraus Anderson's there. And then on the August 14th meeting, remember we talked listening sessions. That's our first listening session. And that session would bat lead off, so to speak, for our board meeting. And there is an opportunity from the community to show up and share and interact with you about this topic. It'll be the only agenda item on that portion of the meeting, so you can engage in conversation with them and not be in violation of open meetings law. You won't be making any action items or decisions, but you can have that conversation, and anyone that wants to show up and engage with us can do that. And then we move on with our regular August board meeting, and then we meet again as an athletics advisory committee meeting in September or October. And we'll know more at that point, we hope, based on community feedback, coaching feedback, your feedback. And we make whatever decision we're gonna make, or don't make a decision by the end of the year. We've got time, which is helpful.
Yeah, the sooner the better, because it does take time to draw, takes time
Correct.
to bid. You know, if Kraus is gonna get busy and get the work done next summer, which I think is what the goal would be, you know, we'd like to have, 3 months to get the documents done, so.
Last call?
Yeah, we do have that 30-day, if we decide, we have to keep that in mind, we have that 30-day.
Yep.
Waiting period.
Any resolution that would be passed to do any work would occur in November, and then there's a 30-day petition window, and then at that point, whatever the result is how you proceed. And then you would do the design work, get the items ordered, and get into your borrowing arrangement, and do the work in the spring and the summer, weather permitting in the spring, obviously.
All right.
Okay.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Troy.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Ryan,
Thank you.
Jeff, Ford. Thank you. Have a good evening. You can't leave, Jeff. No, you can leave. You'll be back up there later.
Yeah.
No.
right.
Later.
Next,
Take-
we'll
take a
go to
break.
our spring AGR achievement gap report.
We are obligated by state requirement to do an AGR report, which is achievement gap reduction. We do that for grades K through 3. And the reason that we do that is because the state of Wisconsin does not mandate a standardized test for K through 3. That happens in 4th grade and beyond, so they have a different requirement, and this is that requirement. So Paula and Jessica are gonna walk through reading scores and math scores.
Yes, so as we presented in the fall, we do 3 times a year, fall, winter, spring, some benchmark assessments that we use with our Fast Bridge program that we do throughout our district. And our goal is to try to get all of our students in each grade level up to that 80% mark of 30 percentile or higher on that Fast Bridge assessments. So in doing that, we had our kindergarten who did a really nice job over the course of the school year, moving from, as you could see, the 79% in the fall column up to 91% of at or above the 30th percentile. So that brought that up to 71 students meeting that mark in reading. You look at the same grade level in math. Again, they were 87% fall, moved up to the 95th percent, if I can read correctly, goodness sakes. 95th percentile, 30% or better, which is 74 students of that grade level. Moving on to 1st grade. Again, same thing with the Fast Bridge assessments. 3 times a year. They started out at 64%. They actually dropped down to that 52 percentile. 43 students in the spring for the 30 percentile or better compared to the 50. This is where you start seeing some of that indication of COVID effects and some of our students being out during those times. And we're really looking on HMH, our new reading resource, and really working on going about our data to trying to figure out where those foundational skills are needed to build. We have HMH coming back in. We have them in July, actually, here next week, trying to find some good interventions and trying to map out some more additional things that we need to do to help those grade levels that were really affected by COVID move forward. So
And we've talked here before, and Tom, you can chime in on this, because I know you have a handle on this research, Jessica as well, that reading in the elementary and intermediate has been hit harder by COVID because it is a direct instruction activity, and no direct instruction occurred during COVID closure, here at school at least. And then math was the flip side of that, was a much bigger effect at the middle school and high school, because math is a direct instruction activity, and the direct instruction did not occur at home, because in some cases, the parents simply weren't able to do the math. They weren't here to be able to do it with us. So that's potentially why you see a 64 down to 52.
Yeah,
But this, like, that 64, that was in the fall though, right?
64% was in the fall, yeah,
So
yeah.
you'll see that in 3rd grade trend as math too. I guess, something that we've talked a lot about is we have a lot of students transition in the spring. So obviously, having incoming students, that affects our results as well.
Correct.
And then concept scaffold in math especially, is, when students come in the fall, you're usually reviewing the prior year's concepts. So if that's two-digit addition that you ended with, that's what you're gonna start with. This isn't it's a computer adaptive test, so as students go higher, the concepts will adapt. So it's not abnormal to possibly see a little bit of drop in percentile on some students, because as you can see, it's, 7 students affected from the 64th for the 52, so they carry a heavy weight in their percentile.
Right.
Absolutely. Yeah, and like Jessica had said, just the expectations from them in the spring test compared to the fall test are different, because there are definitely more standards and so forth that they're hitting there. So first grade, we did reading. First grade, let's take a look at math. Math score, fall was 81%, spring score 83%, so 68 of those students in that grade level in math in first grade. So it's nice to be able to see those moving forward, even though we didn't get to that 80%, we're still seeing that growth moving forward, so that is nice. Second grade, reading, I flip over too fast. Second grade, reading.
But you did make the 80th percentile there in math.
Yes.
You met them both in the fall and the spring.
Right. So math, here's my second grade reading, I wanted to do it in order.
I don't think she's looking at the same thing.
There it is. It's double-sided upside down to follow it right. Reading, second grade, 56% in the fall, and then we're at 66% above 30th percentile or better, 57 students. So that was, again, a progression forward. So that is great. And then in third grade, I don't know if Jessica, you wanted to go ahead and do those. Those scores also include those 18 third graders that remain from the Montessori program over in the Lean building.
So as Sean shared, it's just third grade here at the intermediate school. In the fall, we tested 68% of the students tested above the 30th percentile, and then we made some really nice growth in the spring. You'll see 76 percentile, or 76% of our students, which is great growth for us. And then in third grade math, we did fall a little bit. In the fall, we had 77% of the students, and then 72% in the spring. I wanted to talk just a little bit about, this is our first year, going into our second year as a title-wide school. So I think we're really proud to see the growth that we've made, especially in reading. That's where we took the hardest hit at a primary grade level, was in reading. And so we've put a lot of efforts into being a Title I school. We use a foundational program called Hegarty. We have title teachers that are pushing into classrooms, really leaning on data, and then really having our first year of HMH. I'm very proud of where we're at, and now our next steps are focusing on our Tier 2 resources. So those students that aren't making those achievements, how are we meeting their needs with individualized instruction?
I think the other point to make on those tests are that if a student scores at, let's say your school's at the 70th percentile, they have to grow at the same rate as the state to stay just at 70th percentile, because the scores are going up as the year goes on. So you have, as the kids all continue to score better statewide, now that score that would have been at the 70th percentile in the fall is much harder to get to and so you have to get growth to move that up. So the nice part about it is, for the most part, the students grew at a faster rate than the states, so.
Right, and is this the same assessment tools that you've previously been using in years past?
Correct.
So this is
I just wanted to make sure there's nothing else different or.
This is year 3 of us using an assessment tool called FastBridge. In the prior years, we used to have STAR and DIBBLES, and those were really specific to building levels. So we made a commitment 3 years ago to purchase FastBridge. So FastBridge is actually 4K through grade 12, which is beautiful. So when kids come from the elementary school, and if I have some concerns about a student, I can actually go back to when they were in kindergarten before we didn't have the ability to do that. And so title teachers can actually see maybe the student struggled with foundational skills in kindergarten and we're still struggling today. We need to talk about, what supports do we need to put in place? Are we looking at a special education referral? So it's a beautiful tool because it allows us to see continued growth, not just building growth, but really the development of the child in their skill set.
Have you seen, because of the dip in scores, that there is maybe more of a referral necessary for special services? And now that being a Title I school, do we have those special services available?
Brad, I'm gonna defer to you on that question.
Yeah, we would have the special services available based on, the intervention process and, whether students are meeting those benchmark scores in terms of FastBridge and, and the curriculum-based management that teachers are using with any reading program. And then, if we are looking at, which sometimes we do at certain grade levels, we're seeing that we have more students meeting those referral benchmarks, and then looking back at our overall systems, what differently is happening and what different tools might we have to look at to, address the needs.
Thanks.
Do our English language learners play into these numbers and affect that?
Yes,
Yeah, every student.
yes,
Okay,
every
so,
student.
I mean, if you had influx, non-English speakers, that.
Correct.
Some, but they're all tested.
Yes,
They're all
Yeah.
accounted for.
Yep.
all of the students are. yeah.
We've been very committed in this district to,
Mhm.
on assessments, even if everyone is not required, to testing everybody.
Yeah.
It's an accurate and fair number at that.
And like I said, the value of the assessment isn't on that full number. It's the report that comes out says, for this student, these are the right types of interventions that you should use to try to move that student forward.
Correct.
And so that you can really drive down into each student.
We screen 3 times a year. We screen in the fall, the winter, and the spring. So the winter scores you don't see. But like Mr. Benson said, this program, FastBridge, actually, it will identify students that are lacking skills, and it will actually provide an intervention. It's the documentation, it's the script on how to read it. So then classroom teachers can form small groups. If you have several students that are lacking, in decoding, then you'll have a small group of students that could work on decoding. So it's been a great investment for us. I truly believe it supports all of our learners. It's a great tool.
And it also offers a lot of progress monitoring options there so that you could go by week or bi-weekly so that you can follow that student to make sure that intervention is working. So that's also another nice piece to that. And it just keeps us talking about what next, what do we need to do, what do students need now, how to plan for that, so.
Okay.
Who makes the above 30 or the 80% of kindergarten students or, students will score at, or above 30 percentile, 80%?
The goal, the baseline,
Yeah.
that's pretty typical of a goal for everybody across the board, if you talk amongst other districts and so forth. It's really kind of the gap there that FastBridge runs off of too. It gives us different line items and things, and so 30 percentile is just a really good place to cut that off because it talks about where, students are higher, or where they're on the average side of things, and then when they fall below, that's really where we wanna have those interventions happening. So 30% and higher are saying that the students are doing pretty well compared to the kids in their grade level.
And the 80% goal, I believe, was set by Cheryl and.
It's been that way
Or
for a
quite a
long time,
while,
yes.
they set that
It's not
bar
a state
high.
mandate. It's our
Yeah.
choice what the
Yeah.
goal will be,
Yes.
the
Yes.
objective will
Well,
be.
10 out of the 16 semesters, we didn't even make that goal.
That's
Is that
concern.
fair? Just saying, is that fair? If you don't make it 10 out of the 16, out of the 16 is that, I don't know, is it a realistic goal?
It has been in
Oh,
years
I think
past.
so.
Yeah.
Yeah, it has
I
been,
think-
prior to COVID, it was. That's
We
why I
very
think our
seldomly
state is
didn't make
valuable.
it, we would get there
Mhm.
in prior years, but.
What I'm saying is, prior to COVID, we had the exact same stated performance objective in pretty much every semester, fall and spring, for every grade level, we made it. And now we're not, which is indicative of learning loss, which is why we're doing everything we can to recoup learning loss. So well stated, that's a good catch on your
Yes.
behalf, Joe, because that is a huge problem.
I guess that's why I'm concerned and asking the questions, is because
You
on
see
my
some-
tenure on the board, we have always met it, and then after, it was right around that COVID time that we did start to see the dip, but for me, it was just, concerning, obviously, to see the big dip there from the fall number to the spring, and so then I guess, that's where these guys come in and say, do we need to spend more time doing these things, how do we get these kids out, and I guess that's why I was asking about that, more concerning.
You know,
even.
Absolutely.
We report to you in the spring, but I can tell you that we are responding as this is
Yes.
happening.
Yes.
Kids are getting screened, they're getting progress monitored. Most kids get progress monitored weekly. And so if we go several weeks where they haven't made growth, we'll bring together a team and we'll talk about this student, is not making the correct gains. We need to switch interventions. Do we need to be having, more title time? How can we meet their needs. So it's an ongoing process for us.
Which is nice that we've switched to school-wide, because that just gives us more of a lens and be able to help them via skill versus targeted group or targeted grade level.
And the nice part about being a district our size is there's a lot of reasons they may not be making growth, and some of it's not academic, based on what's going on in their life. And then we're able to really drill down and say, okay, no, really, they need this. They need some time working on some of their emotions and stuff. But and there's a lot of different reasons and things that we do in those meetings to get kids up to where they need to be.
Okay, any other questions? That'll be the end of our informational items then, and we'll go to our action items. Ground source heat pump proposal.
Okay, we talked about this as an informational item last time, and stated that we would bring this back here. It is a time-sensitive item, the ground source heat pump proposal, and I'll have Troy present his information or answer questions about his information that he has previously presented, and then it is an action item, and you can do what you want at that point.
So just to remind you, there are two different ways that we can do the calculation for which you can receive funds from the federal government in the form of a grant for taking steps to be less reliant on the energy grid, particularly at peak moments and things of that nature. The two ways that were used to calculate it was based on how you use energy, based on peak load, peak loss, and your annual consumption. And so each of the two opportunities, next slide, provided you an opportunity to say, well, what's the big difference? The big difference really comes down to the cooling load. As you average out or you look at your annual costs of operation versus your peak costs of operation, the one that gives you the least amount of net savings or dollars back to the district is the one that allows you to essentially, correct me if I'm wrong, George, but essentially in this option, it allows you to just totally get away from your chiller, which is a big piece of equipment that costs a lot of money, and when it goes down, it's noticeable and it's expensive. And so to oversize and go to that opportunity to say, we don't want to use this big piece of equipment anymore, the calculation says that you get penalized for that because of the way you're going to continue to consume energy based on one type of calculation versus the other. So next slide. To keep the chiller and use it for just moments in time where I think it's 10% of the time you might need the chiller based on what you're currently using. And you get the most amount of money back because of the way it helps you manage your energy consumption over the course of the year, but it continues with a large piece of equipment that requires space, it requires operational costs and maintenance and everything else that goes with it. So those are really your two choices if you decide to go move forward with this. And again, the time sensitivity is because you have mechanical units that are about to be installed. If you decide to go with one of these two options, we need to order the parts before the units are installed for them to take advantage of this system. So, so I guess with that, I'll open it up to questions.
How many wells in each one? Is there, it said well field, but it goes by tons.
Yeah, the specific number of wells will be determined once we know the soil types and we pay to have the soil borings complete so that we know the soil types, we know the transfer calculations and all of that. So we won't know the specific number exact until we go in and do that additional design work.
And would you be taking soil samples from alternate locations other than the baseball field, or were you just
Yes.
still looking at the baseball field?
We'll take alternative locations will be considered as we look at how big the well field will be and what areas of the site can accommodate it.
And if I remember right from last month, we kind of thought maybe the better option would be the first one here with the net savings of the 717,000.
Correct. And again, that's my thought process only because it allows you to get rid of a big piece of equipment. George can kind of talk about it, but they're loud, they're,
Well, and it's at life expectancy, so if we were gonna keep that around for, just as a backup on peak days, there's no way we would ever spend $550,000 on a backup piece of equipment. So then we'd have to basically tell people, you're gonna be miserable on these peak days, because who wants to spend $550,000 on 6 or 7 days a year, so, I'm scared of the whole thing, but that would be my option if we went this way.
You're saying your option would be the 717,000 option?
Because then we can fool people, to the point where we spent all this money, they're gonna be happy. With the chiller that we have now, that's basically on its last leg as well. I don't think we would ever replace that for a backup for 6 or 7 or 10 days, depending on our peak days.
Can I make a motion?
Yep.
I'd like to, well, did you say option A? I'd like to make a motion to go with the ground source heat pumps of 284 tons, giving us a net savings of 717,480.
I'll second that.
Okay, Charles seconds it. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No. There we go.
we'll get to work.
It's considerably easier than the last conversation, wasn't it? It beat you out too bad.
Thank heavens there wasn't grass involved.
Well, there
There is a baseball field involved.
Nice.
But you put grass where the chiller clearance.
Yeah.
Thank you, Troy.
All right, elementary school pavement project, are we gonna bring George up to the microphone?
George could, I don't think George is needed. He and I spoke earlier today. I think we're probably on the same spot, and I spoke with Paula as well. The elementary school pavement project, and the reason I haven't spoke with Ryan is he's on vacation, and I certainly wasn't gonna bother him about it. This is the area of land we're talking about. This is the elementary school aerial view. The star to the top left is the north of the building. Please remember, once we get referendum moving along here at the elementary, when you get to, if you see the X on the pavement, which is where what would be the back of the building, you're not gonna get much further than that. You're gonna be blocked off, traffic can't go past there. And right now, our drop-off and pickup for parents dropping off and picking up kids travels that road. It simply will be inaccessible because we're moving a playground and putting in a parking lot and adding an addition to the south of the building. So the drop-off pickup process for parents dropping their kids off and picking them up will be exclusively on the north of the building. So you will come in straight off of Minneapolis, do a loop. You're gonna park at the edge of that green grass, a little further north on there, right in that, a little further down. Right there is where you're gonna end up with your drop-off process, and then you're gonna circle around, and then you're gonna exit back onto Minneapolis. The area where the yellow asterisk is a concern if we keep the parking arrangement the way it is. Because what you have is, if you get two large vehicles, say two Suburbans, one coming in and one exiting, it's hard to make that turn without swinging wide into oncoming traffic. If we eliminate 4 to 6 parking spots there, the first, second, and third, and the first, second, and third on that north lot, you could create more space for that turn so they could angle it, and then you wouldn't have to change a thing. Here is the reason that that's probably a good idea, and it is my recommendation to not do a thing, because it's a one-year fix. After this year is done, you're gonna be back to whatever traffic pattern we choose, and we'll probably choose to use our brand-new parking lot for drop-off and pickup. This is money spent, and the amount of money spent between excavation and paving would be about $30,000 for 1 year. With removing 6 parking spots, I think we can accomplish that goal for $0. So my recommendation would be to not excavate and not pave. Paula is comfortable, sort of, with that idea. George and I are comfortable with that idea. Ryan's the one that was simply trying to address a problem and trying to figure it out. We all were. But we think we can figure it out without having to move any land and pave any surface. But that's up to you whether you want to do that or not. safety is certainly a concern on that corner, but we're just gonna have to mark it off well and be careful.
What just makes it hard to do that is there's actually curb work that goes all the way
Right.
around that bend in that parking lot, and that's why the conversation kind of started happening. How do we get that turn lane basically in there decent so that nobody has a fender bender?
It's gonna be one of many inconveniences that are associated with renovating a building. I mean, this is just a smaller inconvenience that we can fix with, again, eliminating some parking spots.
Yeah, that's a pretty low speed, place there. I mean,
Right.
there's gonna be no, I mean, if you have a fender, it's literally what it's gonna be. It's gonna be trade paint, fender bender, but this isn't like where you're gonna have a high speed collision or somebody's gonna get catastrophically hurt, right? I mean, this is,
Right, right, and because of the way the drop-off is this year, we're just really looking for everybody to kind of stay in their cars and drop and go,
so
and
that would be
so
like
we
my
don't
question is,
have-
what about pedestrian
Right.
traffic with that?
Well, anyone that parks there is gonna be traversing that area.
Mhm.
If they park on the north lot, if they work in the clubhouse setting, they might likely be parked there. They're simply gonna have to be careful as they trek through. If they arrive before 7:45, they're gonna be in good shape, and most clubhouse people do.
Right.
Most report to work between 6 and 7.
Do we have kids traversing this though, like on foot there, like foot traffic?
Not usually.
Okay.
The kids are coming on, if they're coming on bikes, they're coming up Hillcrest or down Minneapolis, they're coming in the front door
Yeah.
typically.
And that's where the buses will be dropping to, is out the front.
There's not a lot of kid traffic in that area, unaccompanied by adult, there's not a lot of kid
Correct.
traffic.
I'd make a motion that we just take out the parking spots and not do the excavating and not do the paving.
Okay,
Second?
Dale, second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no? Okay. We'll save a little money and
That's the goal.
inconvenience people,
All right, thank you.
but they all get along. Now we'll go to our extra C contracts.
Jeff's gonna help me with this, he is going to present some.
Oh, you got that one first.
I'm asking someone.
Jeff's gonna help us walk through
You got it.
coaching salaries, and then I'll talk about extracurricular, because there are extracurriculars that are not coaching, they're advisory positions. This is the last phase of any kind of growth in salary. We began the whole process back in March and April with support staff, certified staff, and then moved on to administrative staff. Now we're talking extracurricular, and that's coaches and advisors. This is, I'm not here to say it's been untouched for decades, but there has not been a wholesale change to coaching salaries in decades. We've tweaked it, we've manipulated a little, but we are far behind where we need to be, and Jeff's information is gonna make that clear, so I'm gonna let you lead that.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that go on after the school day, I think that we all agree on are very important, and they take people to lead those programs. And it was just time for us to take a look to make sure we're providing a competitive salary compared to our other middle border conference schools. When I looked at it, we're below average, 15 out of the 16 high school sports, and well below average, 7 out of the 7 middle school sports. So I'm gonna present a model today that would not make us the top dog, the top paying school district for coaches, but it would make us average to above average in a much more competitive scale. Moving forward here, the timeline, I've been thinking about this for a while, but, you know, we needed to make sure that we took care of our teachers first. So we, you know, went and had conversations with Sean and Josh and Tom about our coaching salaries and said, hey, look, we need to get our teachers a raise first. If that goes through, then we can have conversations about what's going on after school. Our salaries haven't really been updated since the 18-19 school year. And when I say updated, that was not across the board. That was looking at specific programs. So there's sports that haven't received increases in decades. We reviewed the salaries in May, and then I met with Sean, Josh, and Tom in early July, and then we have the board presentation tonight. So it's kind of the timeline. The background, I think there's some astonishing numbers here. We have 66 coaching positions. It does fluctuate each year depending on our needs. Example, we won't have a JV girls golf coach this year because we don't have the need there. There's times where we don't have an assistant middle school position because we only have one team and not two teams. But we're projected to have 66 paid coaching positions. We're really low in the middle school area. Middle school used to be a 6-week season. The athletic directors, very brilliant of themselves, got together and, redid the schedules, and we're looking at a 7.5 to 8 week season. Just, it seems to work best for us and play each team twice. Common opponents, we're not fighting against opponents, when to play who, those type of things. When you look at our head coaches, varsity coaches were $300 from a base salary, below average across the middle border. I literally have an Excel document of every school, what their coaches get paid, and that's how I came up with these numbers. $250 for our assistant coaches. I would say our assistant coaches were close to the average, but $250 below. We're looking between middle school and high school, the most competitive for our programs. Middle school head coaches, $500 below average, and middle school assistant coaches, $800 below average. I think that number is so low because when we would add, say for track, our numbers had skyrocketed. We would grab somebody right before the season, didn't really have a position in place, came up with a number. A lot of times it was just a parent helping us out, but now we're looking at, when we did the research, what are other schools paying their, assistant middle school coaches. So again, this is, we have comparables for all of our schools, middle school, high school. I'll go over the high school proposal. Asking and advocating for a $400 increase for all head coaches and assistant coaches across the board. When I say 15 out of 16 programs, boys hockey is above average, but they're not the highest paid coaching staff in the conference. But we only have 3 other schools that have hockey in the Middle Border Conference. When you look at Rice Lake, Menominee, I'm bringing those schools up because they're in our division for hockey. We also take on Clayton, Clear Lake, and Unity, so we take on their enrollment. So our enrollment for hockey is about 1,000. That's our school population for our co-op there. So again, hockey's not the highest paid program in the Middle Border Conference, but it is above average. This $400 increase would essentially put us at average across the board to above average. And the cost of the district for 42 coaches would be $16,800. Our middle school proposal, again, looked at all of our neighbors in our league, and we were significantly below average, as I mentioned previously. Looking for an increase for basketball, football, volleyball, and wrestling for head coaches to be paid $1,900 and assistant coaches to be paid $1,700. I'll give you an example right now for middle school football. I have a middle school coach in the room, but the head coach is $1,500 and the assistants were $1,000. So if that puts you into perspective there, those increases. And it's very similar across the board for basketball, volleyball, and wrestling. Cross country and track, head coaches advocating for an $1,800 salary, assistant coaches $1,500. Our head cross country coach right now makes $1,000, and across the board in the middle border, the average salary is $1,800. We're $800 below average in cross country. Cross country assistant coaches in the middle border conference $1,500. Right now, our assistant would make $500 for a 7.5 week season. And the cost of the district for middle school would be $15,000 over 24 coaches.
How hard is it when we get a resignation or a spot for a coaching position? What do we look at for applicants for a position? How many?
If I'm lucky, 1, if I'm being serious. 1 to 2, there's times where we're not even doing interviews essentially, like competitive interviews, multiple interviews for these positions. But I would say most of the time you're looking 1 to 2 applicants. Tom and Josh will keep you guys in the loop on a lot of these. I would say 1 to 2 applicants.
Yeah, we have several that we are having a hard time filling right now. And a lot of them they don't do it for money per se, they do it for the love of the sport. But when you're having to, be there till 6, 7, or even in high school sports, really late at night, and then you're traveling and you're home really, really late. You know, it's still probably below minimum wage, but, you know, when it comes down to it per hour. But it's just something to show some appreciation to those people that are doing a lot of mentoring and servicing the students to making sure that they're getting a good experience.
Yeah, I guess it surprises me that we don't have more applicants when we have such a, we've had through the years a very active booster population, and I'm surprised that that doesn't carry over to middle school and high school. Have we talked to the people that do the boosters? I mean, I did that. I did booster coaching, and then I volunteered middle school, and I see there's an assistant high school football coach coming up, so just in case anybody wants any, like, you know, free volunteers there.
I think one of the issues, Shar, is a lot of the booster sports and stuff happen 6:30, 7 o'clock at night. Parents are off at work. The middle school practices are, you know, that 3:30 to 5 o'clock window, and so that eliminates a lot of the pool right there of potential coaches.
How are we, like, do you know, like, compared to other schools, do they have the same problem filling coaching positions, or?
Yes, actually, we're in a pretty good spot right now. I mean, when we talk about our high school program, top to bottom, we're in a really good spot. Middle school, you'll always have vacancies. And some of our vacancies are, you know, it's an assistant position that we didn't have last year, but our numbers are projected to have 2 teams instead of 1. So I'm very comfortable with where we're at with our coaching staff, you know. I've seen the openings for other districts, but you will always have a decent number of middle school positions. It's somewhat of a revolving door in those, especially in the assistant positions.
Seems like that's where we get a lot of turnover in our
Yep.
own schools, the middle school.
Yep.
Coaching positions.
One piece to make our package a little more competitive was this longevity pay. So our coaches may not have the highest base salary, but this is common in about half of the middle border conference schools. Some type of longevity pay, so something, your years of experience are recognized. And so, you know, currently we do have a longevity schedule you'll see at the top of the screen. The cost of the district this year with our current coaching staff was $6,300. I do have a proposal underneath it, you know, to get folks that longevity pay a little earlier in their career. You can see this year alone, we had 27 coaches with 0 to 2 years of experience. And I'm not saying they're coming back for year 3 because of $100, but I just think it is a nice gesture to get them involved in our longevity schedule, and to kind of feel some love there, you know. And so we did adjust the longevity schedule a little bit. It would be an $1,800 increase if we were looking at the same 2022-23 staff. I went through each coaching position and applied the new proposal there. You know, when somebody has 15 plus years of experience, a lot of times that is our varsity coaches. I do have a middle school football coach now that's been doing it quite a few years, but, you know, years of experience in coaching are priceless.
Are you talking about years of experience overall, or are you talking about longevity pay? I mean, because if you're
So, in
talking
the
longevity pay in the district, those would be 2 different things in my
No,
mind.
this is just for the sport, and it's actually specific to Amery. So let's say you're a football coach and you come from Luck, Wisconsin, and you have 15 years of experience. We don't just slot you in with the $400 increase,
Well, that's what I'm asking, yes.
although I may have to answer that question at this meeting. However, it would be 15 years in that specific sport. In Amery.
That's what I'm asking.
Yep.
District
Just- yep,
specific.
Yep.
What about, instead of maybe not necessarily years, but performance-based?
Well, I would say.
Can I speak on
Yeah,
this?
go ahead.
I'm being facetious here, you realize that.
Shar, we're not working
Poor
with.
Jeff, he's like, all right, he's like,
We're not
oh.
working with the salary cap here. We don't get to draft our teams. We get to play the cards that we're dealt. And sometimes you're gonna get.
I know,
Yeah,
I'm-
okay. all right.
It was literally just tongue in cheek there.
Sometimes my radar
Just
goes up.
calm
too.
down, people.
Yeah, I actually don't tell them in their interview that there's an evaluation process. But I will say, like, every one of our high school teams, the players do receive a survey and they do evaluate their coaches. And we have, every high school coach does have an evaluation conversation after each season. Now, we don't do that with middle school and all of our assistants, but, so there is an evaluation piece to it. But I'm not doing 67 evaluations, believe it or not.
Sean, where do we have money for this?
Well, did we pay for this the same place we pay for it via other salary? John's prepared to answer that question. We talked earlier today.
It's a $33,600 increase.
Yeah, we're more than healthy in regards to that budget is concerned, so.
You want to grab the mic?
That's an increase or the total?
That's an increase from the previous year over 66 positions. Yeah. So I'm gonna have the numbers here. I think it's 175.
And where would that put us rather than 15 out of 16? That's the other thing is I think this needs to be addressed. We don't want 15 out of 16 at the bottom.
Yeah, so when I say 15 out of 16, I say, those are all the individual sports, but this puts us at least average or above average in every sport across the board. And then with the longevity pay in there, it does make it a very competitive schedule.
Yeah, Jeff's done a nice job of pulling together a spreadsheet. Tom and Jeff and Josh and I looked at it with him, every number for every district, and it does do just that. It's put us at average or above average in 16 out of 16, because right now, you're right, it's 15 out of 16, we're at or near the bottom. And it's a thankless endeavor. I mean, I know what time these gentlemen get home. It's not 6 o'clock, sometimes it's 10 o'clock. It's a big
The other
commitment.
thing is, I think we can do a better job too of like reviewing the schedule. There is a document that is shared with all the middle board schools, and you can go in there at any time and take a look to see, I'm sure a couple other schools are having these conversations too this summer. But if you don't touch it for a number of years, it'll become outdated.
And that's considering hasn't moved for like 5 years, so that's 33,000 increase from 5 years ago.
Prior to that, it was over 10,
Yeah.
wasn't the deal? I mean,
It was a long time,
it was
yeah.
a
Long
long
time.
time. So,
In my opinion, these need to be adjusted a little bit, so.
It's already been part of the budget conversation. You're gonna see a preliminary presentation of the budget next month from John and I, and it's already become part of that picture.
do you want to,
Now, that's the first half. I'm not sure if you wanna do the other advisory positions with it or take it separately. My presentation is shorter than Josh's in regards to what he has given to you. The proposal is simply a 3% increase, rounded to the nearest zero. And these are for all of the advisory positions. You'll see none of these are athletics. In some cases, there had to be a significant increase. We were way out of line in areas such as dance and forensics, so we moved those forward based on the comparisons to other districts. And that's where you generate the new numbers, and then you see the total increase of 11,850. So the total increase is the 31 plus the 11 puts you at 4243. That's the rest of the picture, if you will. And these folks are making the same type of commitment that coaches are in many cases. These are not fleeting endeavors. This is a big operation we've got here to manage all of these affairs. And it takes people to do it.
Yeah, so we're at about $45,000 increase for,
Approximately.
what? 80 people, 80 positions? maybe?
More, probably closer to 100.
Yeah, so. That seems,
And it hasn't been addressed, this one hasn't been addressed in decades.
And all these positions for the activities advisors are across the board what the other schools paid for.
Well, I think these activities actually vary. I mean, there's some like dance, you could say, in forensics, but, the FBLA advisor, depending on what your program looks like, so we don't do a ton across. I mean, I didn't reach out to the other middle border conference schools for all of these positions.
We simply move forward 3%.
Yeah.
Not all schools have all of these, and we don't have everything that they have. I imagine River Falls has got stuff we haven't even imagined yet. I mean, we're different sizes, we're different needs. These are the activities that have existed for the longest of time, and in some cases, some of these folks have been in these positions for the longest of time, and they haven't been touched in decades. This is simply for us to incentivize doing that work and rewarding them financially if we can. There's a couple of new items here that just, event live stream coordinator, that's a new one. That's something we're very reliant on. Now, if we stop live streaming events, there'd be anarchy. People would go crazy. We're live streaming everything. So these are simply a reflection of the need of this district and this community.
Typically, when we do add a position, though, we do reach out to the other schools just to get a ballpark figure of, where should we be starting? So when we do add programs, that's how we typically get a base salary.
What are your wishes?
I would like to see these increases implemented. However, since I have a daughter that coaches junior high volleyball and is making the big bucks doing that, I will choose to abstain from voting, but I would hope that this would pass.
So I'll move to accept the coaching salaries, the athletics, and the activities as salary revisions as presented.
I'll second it.
Why, thank you.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, no? There we go.
Thank you.
Thank you for doing the homework. It's always
Thanks, Jeff.
good to have the
Very good.
numbers and research done. Now, on to our student academic standards. Jessica.
So this is an annual notice. We do this every July, just notifying the board of our student academic standards alignment. So this is our 23-24 alignment. The first is, bear with me as I read our annual notice. The school district of Amery has a responsibility for maintaining a minimum program of instruction guaranteed by the Wisconsin state statute and for initiating improvements beyond that minimum. The relevant statutes encompass standards in mathematics, science, reading and writing, geography, and history. Professional staff under the direction and supervision of the curriculum coordinator are delegated the responsibility for developing curriculum changes and additions. The School District of Amery School Board approves the adoption of pupil academic standards on an annual basis. The School District of Amery Board establishes standards and aligns their curriculum and instruction. K-12 English, Language Arts, and Mathematics standards are based upon the Common Core State Standards, often referred to as the CCSS, and all other program areas are based upon the most current Wisconsin Model Academic Standards, National Standards Next Generation Science Standards, referred to as NGSS, and College, Career, and Civic Life, referred to as C3 Framework for Social Studies Standards. I wanted to give just a little bit of history. You can actually find this on the DPI's website. So Wisconsin academic standards specify what students should know and they should be able to do in a classroom. They serve as goals for teaching staff and really are the foundation of what we teach within schools. Setting high standards enables students, parents, educators, and citizens to know what students should learn and have learned at a given point in time, and for us, it's per grade level. In Wisconsin, all state standards serve as a model. Locally elected school boards adopt academic standards in each subject area to best serve their local communities. I wanted to highlight why are academic standards important. We must ensure that all children have equal access to high-quality education programs. Clear statements about what students must know and be able to do are essential in making sure our schools offer opportunities to get the knowledge and skills necessary for success beyond the classroom. Each curriculum actually has a phase-by-phase rollout that aligns with this image that you can see. So for example, when we adopted HMH, and this is our second year, we are in phase 2 of the curriculum. We spent several years understanding the curriculum and the alignment of standards. We are now using the curriculum and we are aligning that curriculum with the standards. We are towing into phase 3, which is the assessment piece of it and understanding the instruction. So at any given time, any curriculum or subject area is actually in phase 2 or 3 of this. And we really do a lot of professional development to make sure that our new teachers or new to us teachers really understand what are our standards and what are our alignment of standards. Next is our program alignment. So if you look at each column, it will show you where we align. So English language arts and mathematics, we align with Common Core state standards. I do want to share that new standards are rolling out for mathematics through the Wisconsin DPI, and those will actually be a 2024 implementation. So last year we had several math teachers and myself attended some CISA professional development meetings. We'll continue with that this year. We're introducing them to staff, and then next year they will be implemented. And those are the standards that we will follow beginning next year. Science follows the Wisconsin Model Academic Standards and NGSS. Social Studies follows the C3 framework for standards. And then art, music, PE, health, and CTE follow the Wisconsin Model Academic and National Standards. I wanted to just also show for anyone, any of you as board members or any parents or other stakeholders that are interested, you can find our alignment of standards on our website. So this is a snip that I took. If you go just to our district website and you go under, I can't see it, curriculum standards, you can find the different content areas. Thank you. You can find the different content areas. You can click on them and it will actually take you to the standard alignment. A lot of what we do is focused on our standards. It's a very important piece of who we are and what we teach. Do you guys have any questions for me? All right, thank you.
I'll make a motion, we approve the 2023-2024 student academic standards.
And a second?
Second.
Char, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no? There we go. Dot the line. Now we have well bids.
I mentioned to you last time, we put a bid in the paper, a free press, for bids. We didn't receive any, so we reached out to a couple of outfits to do this work. And we have two bids here before you, BLC and Martel, the two different prices there. In conversation that we had prior to the meeting in closed session for full transparency, we have some question that these two bids have not bid the same work, as in one well is dug at a greater distance down than the other. So my recommendation to you would be for me to bring this back in August with apples to apples. And if we approve it, we still have opportunity in August and September to do it, because the ground will still be ripe to be able to do that, unless you want to do it now. But my recommendation will be simply to wait 3 weeks.
I move to table the well bids.
Char and Joe, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no? There we go. All right, next month.
We
Fun stuff.
we continue to have donations to the district, and what you see here is donations since last month. Thank you to the Lanford family for helping to fund the elementary school's outing to the Amery Theater in May. Thank you to Joy and Richard Olson for their donation of an auto harp to the music department. And thank you to LHB for a $500 donation in the honor of Emily Larson for the Family and Consumer Education Program. And those are your three donations for the month of July.
I'll make the motion, we approve the donations to the district with many thanks.
Yes. Joe, second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no? Yes, many thanks. It's always cool. An auto harp. Which one of the boys is gonna
I'm
play
not a music guy. Don't ask me what an auto harp is. Maybe someone else in the room knows, but I do not.
One of the boys will be bringing it
Oh,
home.
well, yeah,
that? Better
maybe.
than drums.
We don't have any of that yet.
Yeah, okay. Cool. Good stuff. Personnel action.
Personnel, we have new employment contracts and extracurricular contracts for Andrew Erickson and Phi Ed in high school football as an assistant, and Marie Gosnell, special ed para, Sherry Lee, 7th grade volleyball assistant, Dava Manning, prom advisor, race rolling, high school cross-country head coach, Greg Wallen, in special ed as a para. We have resignations, reassignments, for Chelsea Driscoll moving from a special ed para to a special ed teacher. Jill Jackson moving from an office para to the athletic secretary substitute coordinator. Brenda Olson, special ed para into regular ed para. And then resignations from Tony Azapira in high school football, Jeremy Castleberry in mechanic grounds, Paul Ensign for cross-country and track, Isaac Karpinski for middle school football assistant, and lastly, Stacy Madsen for first grade teacher. And the last item that you see noted there is going to be brought back to you after further redefining what it is next month.
Okay.
Move to approve the amended personnel action items as amended.
Second?
Second by Dale, all those in favor say aye.
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 So, did you ever say anything about Pam Robarge?
I have not said anything about Pam Robarge. She turned that thing at the last possible
I know.
moment and as secretly as possible. I'm not sure she wants us to say anything. Anyone want to say anything about Pam Robarge? Good stuff, of course. Jeff, Josh?
Pam has saved my life.
Yeah.
We know she's been babysitting you. We
Many
got
times.
that.
Still texting me to this day, different things that are coming in and out, offering professional development to Ms. Jackson, always offering professional development to me. Pam's a rock star. She's a friend. She's a colleague. And the district was lucky to have her for as many years as we did. There's nobody greater than Pam. You know, she shows up to work and assigns subs when she should be at home and she should be sick. So I'm forever grateful for my time with Pam.
They don't make them like Pam, I'll tell you that. And she had her own son, but then she had, she's taken care of Jeff and I now for a number of years. And, she knows when to come in and counsel, and she knows when to come in and tell us to suck it up, Buttercup, and that's what we signed up for, but we're gonna miss Pam.
Yes.
Yeah, she's one of the good ones. We'll greatly miss her.
I'll send her the requisite survey and see if she gives me some answers. I think spending time with grandkids might be at the top of the list. That'd be my hunch.
Yes.
She's never been one for attention.
No, she has not.
I'm hopeful I can still hear the work at Michigan Stanford. That's on her retirement list.
I don't think she's gonna listen it.
She did go and visit her son out in Colorado, but from the athletics department, we will be honoring Pam at some point for her work.
Yes. Yeah. And the reason I said that is Jill has already called our house, and talked to Jan about substituting. Ooh, no.
No,
can't.
we're not ready to have Keith Self in the district.
Can't anyway.
One day, I can do
No,
it.
no.
Give me the kindergartners.
No, no.
Careful what you wish for, Keith.
Take you any day. Man, nothing like mud pies and having fun. Great. Do we have a need for closed session?
No.
Anybody? Then I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I'll move to adjourn.
Char, second.
Second.
Dale, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are closed. Thank you much, everyone.